Sure.
Well, hey everybody. Welcome to Steve Couper's podcast for aspiring real estate investors. In each episode, we connect with seasoned investors and industry subject matter experts. And these are people that are all eager to share their experiences, tips for success, and etc. Whatever we need as we're investing in real estate, there's a lot of value that we can realize from the people that come on this show. So before I go too much further, though, what I'd like to encourage you to do is if you're enjoying this content, please hit the like button. If you think your audience might enjoy it, please feel free to share it. And most importantly, if you want to see more of this, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. So, as I was saying, my guests always bring value. And today, I'm really stoked to introduce my guest for Steve Couper's podcast number 24. She's a real estate investor, but she's hailing from the insurance industry. And as we walk into this investing world, we will spend a lot of time focusing on analyzing buildings and understanding this and that. But building your team is one of the most important things, and having an insurance agent in your corner is ultimately the one of the goals I think we really need to make sure we put focus on as we see the insurance industry adjusting everywhere. So my guest today is a real estate investor hailing from the insurance industry. She's got a demonstrated history of working with customer service sector. She lives in London, Ontario. She's happy to be working in a holistic office, providing home, auto, business, and life insurance, as well as financial planning investments. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and profound pleasure to welcome guest number 24 on Steve Couper's podcast, Eleni Mai. I hope I pronounced
Thank
it
you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Eleni, before I go too much further, can you please tell me, did I capture that introduction properly? Is there anything you'd like to correct me on?
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Were perfect.
Well, before we dive into the questions that I've got, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, share your journey into real estate, and what inspired you to become an investor after or coming from this insurance industry. Tell me more about yourself.
Yes, thank you. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, I guess. I'm Greek in background, born in London, Ontario, and raised here. I lived in Greece for 8 years. So I've I've seen people come to Canada as immigrants, and my parents and my grandparents were immigrants. So it's important to realize the hard work that goes into settling into a new country, right? So it's definitely huge to know what you want to accomplish in life. And I think that it took me a while to realize what that was for me, because I was always growing up trying to help everyone else in my family. I never really thought about what I needed to do for me. So for the longest time, I was in the hospitality services because, being Greeks, we're always into restaurants. But yeah, I made a shift in my career in 2018. And I wasn't really even looking for insurance, to be honest with you. It kind of fell in my lap. So I knew it was, meant to be. And I'm really glad that I embraced it because I love my career. I don't consider it a job, as people call it, at all. It's something that I love and I'm passionate about, and I love to be able to help others, which is kind of what brought me into like the real estate world. I know that I had always thought about it and I was interested in it, but this kind of put me in the middle of it, dealing with a lot of real estate investors. And it provided me with a lot of knowledge of what they needed and what it was that I could provide for them, which was really important for me because I base everything in anything that I do. Everything is based on relationships for me, and that's super important. So I was happy to connect with a lot of them and really dig into what it is that they were looking for, what they needed, what I could provide for them. And I got into even as far as going on walkthroughs with them and, really breaking down deals to make sure that we can provide them with something valuable to close their deal, right? So it kind of, and then I working with Sam and Dave, they're also real estate investors. So, they kind of took me under their wing. And then just over a year ago, I was introduced to the Wealth Genius family, which has, changed my life. I've learned a lot and I've been able to move forward with that. So I'm super excited to see what the future holds.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I'm excited too. I think that the world really opens up as we start into exploring the real estate industry from the investor lens as opposed to from the homeowner. So there's a lot more to this. For me, there's an emotional surge of information that really is um, empowering. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what you've been learning and what this is, what transformation you're experiencing as you go, and where this is now taking you. What are you learning, and how is that empowering you going forward?
Yeah, like from a real estate investor standpoint, you know, the number one thing that I learned is that I can do it, because you always find yourself in that what if mode. You know, well, what if someone doesn't pay me rent, or what if I can't afford to pay the rent, the mortgage, or, you know, well, can't really afford to buy this. I don't have enough money for a down payment or whatever, you know. And like the answer is, it doesn't matter what the answer to those questions are. You know, like you can always do it. There's always a way, and it's just a matter of finding the way to do it and having the right people around you to help you complete your goal. I'm learning a lot about the different tracks that I never really knew about before. You know, like I never really knew what wholesaling was. I was really never into land development. I always found it too complicated and too much to worry about. And to be honest with you, it's still not one of my favorites, but, you know, all the power to those that do it. So, the only thing I enjoy about land development is providing the insurance for it. So, but the multifamily track is what really has caught my attention, and I think it's where it's at. I'm actually in the middle right now of making a shift in my journey, and I was more into private lending. And so I'm hoping that 2025 is the year where I kind of wrap up all those and shift into the multifamily sector, and you know, buy myself a property for sure.
Yeah. Actually, that's something that I've done as well. I spent a year doing private lending, and I've now shifted into more of an active role. And it's refreshing to hear you're following the same path. I like that. So
Yeah.
you're looking into multifamily. Why did you choose multifamily over all of the other streams? What was it about this that appeals to you?
Yeah, you know, I always thought of, you know, maybe I'll buy a home and rent it out, or, you know, buy a condo, rent it out. But the reality is that there's more risk with that. And, you know, if I get a one unit and I rent it out and someone doesn't pay their rent, then I'm stuck paying for that mortgage by myself. You know, there's not much I can do in Ontario. The landlord tenant board is not exactly always friendly to their landlord. So, you know, I didn't want to get myself into a situation where I was stuck and deterred from wanting to move forward with my goals, right? So I feel a multifamily is the way to go. It's something that is in high demand. And if I have multiple doors and one is not paying rent, I still have the others to offset that, hopefully, right? So it just seems like the smart decision to make, to be honest with you.
I couldn't agree more. So now leaning back more into your insurance background here and trying to see the opportunities and the approach that you've experienced as an insurance agent and now you're feeling as an investor.
Mhm.
What advice can you give to investors as they're saying, okay, I'm going to acquire this property, and now they're needing to approach their insurance broker and look for getting the policy set up? What should they be doing in advance of that so that you've got all the information you need, they get the best rates they can, et cetera? What would you say to those investors about looking when they're looking for insurance?
Yeah, you actually couldn't have said it better. Information is key, um, especially to make sure that you're going to get the proper coverages and the best premiums. And so I always suggest that when you're looking at a property, if you're on a walkthrough, take lots of pictures, and try and, you know, collect as much information about the property as possible. I know that it seems annoying sometimes when you have your insurance agent or broker ask you 10 million questions, but the truth is we're doing that to ensure that we're putting you in the right policy with the right coverages, And we call we have something called the big four. So your plumbing, your electrical, your furnace, and your roof, those are all super important when it comes to premiums, because to give you an example, the newer your furnace is, the less risk there is, right? So the systems take all that into consideration. So knowing the years that those things were updated is super important. But the biggest thing I can basically provide value with is to always just be transparent with your insurance agent or broker. Let them know what your intentions are with a property. Let them know if there's something wrong with a property. Don't think that saying something like that will deter them from helping you, because the truth is that we can only help you if we know exactly what you need.
Right. So for all of the acquisitions, we'd be getting a property inspection and assessment. Does all of that documentation come to the insurance agent as well?
Yes, we often ask for those. And depending on what kind of projects, like even for land development, we need geotechnical reports. We need the plans, the site plans. We need all of that, right? So we can provide all that information to the underwriting team to make sure that what they're looking at on the policy or the submission is properly inputted.
Nice, nice. It's important information to know, and there's so many surprises as you walk through your first, second, third acquisition. It's important to actually know in advance, and I think establish those relationships. Now, does anybody do that? Do they call up and say, "Hey, I'm an investor and I'm looking in this area. What should I know?" And establish that network of people that are on their team. I like to do that. I like to make sure that I've got the realtor, the mortgage broker, the insurance agent, the property managers, that team in place. But what's your advice as you're doing that? We don't have any business right now, but I'm looking to in the future. What kind of call would that be for you? And how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, from an insurance standpoint, I can't really provide value as from an area point of view. A lot, all insurance policies are based on territorial. Like the postal code that we're actually providing the quote for will have a big role in what those premiums are, because it depends on, has the company had a high volume of claims in that area, which is not something that I would necessarily know upfront to tell you, right? So what I recommend is to gather that information in the photos, and we just do a quote to see what that might look like. There's no commitment to a quote and it's free. So why not know what you're, getting into? And of course, if I have the opportunity to come to a walkthrough with you, I can kind of take the photos for you, make things a little bit easier, and maybe tell you what you should be looking at, what might be an issue, what if things look good, that kind of thing. So I try to do that as much as I can for my clients. Sometimes if I'm not in the area where the walkthrough is, they'll FaceTime me, and I do the best I can virtually. But it is important to just get that quote. That's all I can say, because really, like, it might be an estimate at the time, but you at least see what the requirements will be, what the questions will be, which could trigger you to be worried about something, right? Like if the insurer is asking about if they say, oh, well, we see here that the furnace is too old, then you kind of know the insurance company is going to expect you to replace that. And so you have to include that in your numbers, your due diligence, right? So I think that that's the most important thing.
Said a number of really important tidbits of information in there. One of them was different rates per postal code. So
Mhm.
is your range just limited to London, Ontario, or do you actually have the ability to insure across Canada? What's the limits?
Yeah, so personally, my license is to cover Ontario. However, I can insure properties that are outside of Ontario if there's a tie to Ontario. So, for instance, Steve, if you were partnered up with someone in Ontario on a building that was in Alberta, because there is a partner in Ontario, I can insure the building in Alberta, as well as obviously I can insure anything in Ontario, even if you're not in Ontario. However, I'm in the process right now of looking to expand my license to other provinces in Canada. So as that happens, I will be making announcements so that people know. I already have so many inquiries for insurance in different provinces. So they're all kind of on hold waiting to find out. But yeah, and territorial, that's on any kind of policy, whether it's auto, home, commercial. There's always a postal code there, right? Like they want to know where your car is parked overnight all the time, where the property is, because that's how each company has their territories that are updated on, you're usually a yearly basis, sometimes a couple of years based on what their volume of claims that are coming in. But that postal code is super important. Another thing that's important, especially for habitational and commercial policies, is kind of like a little credit score. It's not the same type of thing as going to apply for a mortgage, but there's definitely a background there as to how long you've been insured. Have you paid your previous policies on time? What your credit score is like, that all gets taken into consideration. So for instance, if you and I were going to get a quote on the exact same property, the quote would not be the same at all because, I may not have as much experience or years in the industry as you would. So therefore, your credit score on that would be a lot better than mine. Just the same, on auto policies. If you've been, insured and had your license a lot longer, your premium is going to be a lot better on a vehicle than it would be for me on the exact same vehicle if I've had my license, 10 years less than you, kind of thing. So it just depends on a lot of factors. And it's so hard to go through all of them because it's not, first of all, we would be on the phone for hours and hours. But second of all, they're not necessarily all factors that I know either, right? The system knows what it's looking for and it spits out my numbers. And some of them we can play around with, some of them we can't. Auto is non-negotiable. It's, regulated by government and it is what it is. So
Very, very good information. I love it. I love it. So speaking of markets, where are you focused? You're from Greece? Are you looking to international investments? Are you staying in London, Ontario? Or are you looking at Alberta? What is your thought? Where are you going?
yeah, to start, I think I'm going to stay close to home. Not necessarily, not looking outside of Ontario. If I found the right deal with the right partners outside of Ontario, I would definitely consider it. Definitely not looking overseas right now. That's a little too far for my liking. I like to make sure I get my feet wet before I jump in. So but yeah, it's kind of been nice for me because this year, the deals that are coming to me are now for me to look at, not to look at for other people. So it's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting. So, I mean, I've built a team in the areas that I'm looking to try and invest in. Um, is that something you're actively doing in the London, Ontario area? And what have you learned in the course of doing that?
Yeah, it's important to have the right team, right? And I'm in the process of building mine as we speak, just because I want to be prepared for when the time comes. If you wait until you find something, you're kind of behind schedule, right? So, for those of you who know me, I Sam and Dave and I they call us the trio, but like we do a lot of things together. We're going investments together. So I feel very blessed to have them around me because they know a lot. They've taught me a lot. And they've always got my back. So that's super important to me. Even if there's things that we may not do together, I usually don't make decisions without talking to them first. And we always just touch base and connect on what everyone's working on because it's important to have those people that can be upfront with you and tell you, this is good for you, no, this is not, without having to second guess whether what they're telling you is really true and if it's not benefiting them. So but yeah, as far as the rest of the team, I have people that I work with on things already just because I do a lot of networking and I set up a lot of networking events here, so I know a lot of people. But it's important to picking the right people. I just had to go through a refinance myself, and it was super important that the people that I chose to help me through that were knowledgeable based on what I needed in the process, right? Not every refinance process is the same. And people always say to me, like, thanks for choosing me. I know you know a lot of people, but it's not about me not picking someone because, I'm not putting you aside and never saying that I'm not going to do business with you, but specifically right now, I'm going to pick who I need and who I know is going to provide me with what I need. And so that's what's important, is making sure that you put your priorities straight and look at what you really, really need and who can help you with that.
Yeah. So very true. So very true. What are your goals for this year? What do you want to achieve in 2025? And what's your 5-year vision? What do you see coming up?
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. 2025 is going to be great. So this year I'm definitely buying a multifamily property. So I've already started looking at some deals and getting myself into a lot of walkthroughs. I'm working towards starting my own podcast. Doing a lot more public speaking. I've been doing public speaking since high school, actually, a long, long time, but I'm glad now that I can do it and bring value to others with information that I'm providing them, in the real estate world themselves. But I also speak to a lot of realtors, business owners. I do a lot of networking events. So I'm always out there trying to bring value to people. I also do a lot of community work in London, Ontario, and surrounding areas. As an office, we're actually heavily involved in the community, and I also do nonprofit insurance. So it gives me the chance to connect with those organizations and really truly learn what it is that they're doing for the community. And I want to take the opportunity to bring that out to the community, because so many people just don't know these organizations exist, or even if they do, they don't really know what they're doing for the community and what their services that are being provided are. So it's super important for me to do that. So yeah, it's going to be a great year. I would say for 5 years from now, um, I would just like to have more time to do more of that.
Yeah,
And I was asked not long ago to set my 5 year financial goals. So within the next 5 years, I'm looking to have a net worth of over $5 million.
that's congratulations already, right up front.
Thank you.
Congratulations for knowing where you're going.
You got to go for
Yeah.
it.
Um, so before we go any further, what is your why? What is moving you exactly? What is it that's driving you forward, and that success? How are you going to know that you've got to what you want to, and achieved your why?
Yeah, your why is so important. And I've spent my whole life working really, really hard. My, I lived with a single mom for many, many years who worked 4 jobs to put food on the table, and I'm so proud of her. She did such a great job. And we've always even when my kids were little, we lived paycheck to paycheck. So I've just worked really hard, and I've now come to the point where I'm like, I deserve whatever it is that I want. And so I'm just gonna go get it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is important to me that I can provide that opportunity to my kids and help my family have a better life. And if this is one way to do it, why not?
Right on, right on. So before we wrap things up, let me say again, if you're enjoying this content, please hit the like button. If you think your audience might enjoy it, please share it. And most importantly, if you want to see any more, please make sure you hit the subscribe button below. So thank you, Eleni. I truly appreciate you sharing your story and insights in the world of real estate investing and insurance with us. I think that's fascinating, and I'm going to talk to you more about this. If people want to reach out to you, how should they get in touch with you?
Of course, first let me thank you for having me, Steve. It was a pleasure, and I always love to chat with you. Yeah, I can provide my Instagram account and Facebook account. Reach out anytime, and let's connect.
Perfect. All righty, folks. Thank you very much, Lenny. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye bye.